After several years of neglect, it was decided to buy new blinds for the exterior hall windows. These roll shades were ordered from Timber Mart. When it came time for us to install them, we looked at the lath and plaster walls and its poor condition, and we then decided rather than fill the holes and cracks and repaint the existing plaster, we would remove the trim from the top of the wainscoting and build a 2x4 wall on the north and west side. Install house wrap to keep the moisture out, insulate it with Roxol bats, install the vapor barrier, then drywall and paint. The south and east interior walls were to be strapped, drywalled and painted. Steve Cahill and Carl Nicholas getting ready for construction. Steve Cahill removing the outside row of ceiling tiles. Carl Nicholas keeping an eye on things. Walter Deere organizing the ceiling tile. Steve looking for straight 2x4s. Busy picking through the pile. Steve Cahill putting down the 2x4s right side up, getting the electrical cords untangled. Harold Lang helping to screw the wall together. Walter, Carl and Martin Blickman putting on the house wrap. Steve Cahill organizing the project from the scaffold. Martin Blickman's turn on the scaffold. Card players, Walter Broderick, Helen Moak, Mel Ramsire and Carl Nicholas enjoying a game of euchre in the kitchen. Member Jack Whitlofer helping with the project. Walter Deere helping set up a short length of wall. Ron Whiffen puts additional screws in the 2x4s under the guidance of Walter Deere. The wall is done and we're waiting for the electrical installation. Here come the sheets of 12-foot drywall from Timber Mart. Harold Lang helping with the electrical installation. Steve Cahill, did I make another mistake? Three great minds discussing the installation of the first sheet of drywall. Harold Lang taping the seams of the vapor barrier. Members resting before we start installing drywall. Carl Nicholas and Robert Elliott. Walter Deere pointing out to Carl, Bob, Jack and Harold how to do it. Carl checking it out to make sure it is plumb. Martin and Walter telling Carl it's good enough. Martin and Walter strapping the east wall. Martin and Walter moving the scaffold up the obstacle course. Steve, Carl, Martin and Walter having a discussion. Harold Lang and Martin Blickman setting up a section of the west wall. Steve joining two sections of wall together. Steve putting in another screw. Harold, Carl and Walter discussing things. Steve fitting the curved pieces around the window. Martin and Walter working on the west wall. Martin busy screwing on the drywall. Getting close to the northwest corner. Harold Lang admiring the mudding process. Walter and Carl watching Steve and Martin. Carl Nicholas keeping an eye on Steve Cahill. Ron Whiffen starting to trim the windows. Ron and Steve discussing how the windowsills are going to fit into place when all is done. Martin cutting up insulation. Bob Elliott doing some final mudding. Ron applying the final coat of mud under the watchful eye of Carl Nicholas. Steve trying to drywall the curve on the big west window. Steve doing some final touch-ups on the east wall. Walter and Martin moving the scaffold along the west wall. Fellow member Bill Whitlofer taking a few moments to relax. Carl Nicholas filling the screw holes in the drywall. Harold Lang and Marlene Whiffen discussing the pros and cons of ginger ale. Ron Whiffen repairing the wood on the exposed pillar. Marlene Whiffen busy revarnishing some trim. Steve Cahill busy touching up the paint job around the windows and up on the pillar. Carl Nicholas busy with the paint roller. Marlene busy varnishing and Ron and Walter busy cleaning out the cold air registers. Carl holds the hose while Steve nails the trim. Project is almost done. Most of the trim is installed. Steve doing the final installation of the windowsills. Ron and Marlene Whiffen starting to clean up the mess on the hall floor. Steve removing the painter's tape from the grid on the ceiling tile. Steve reinstalling the revarnished trim. Ron Whiffen varnishing the wooden panels at the front of the hall. Project has been completed and we've finished cleaning up. Here Martin Blickman says, "Well boys, a job well done." After giving the walls a badly needed update the year previous, it was decided to either replace the aging water and tobacco stained ceiling tile or replace them. After some consideration, it was decided to replace them with 2 foot by 2 foot tile. This is the way the ceiling appears today. Before starting this project, we purchased 2 sections of scaffolding at Princess Auto to make this project easier and safer for the old guys. Notice the location of the chair for sit-down jobs. Steve Cahill painting the gridwork brown. Steve saying, "It's your turn up on the scaffold, Martin." Ron getting ready to remove the old tile from the ceiling. Steve installing pieces of tile in the outside roll. Ron getting ready to reinstall the insulation. Walter and Martin helping out. Ron and Steve installing the support slats. These were 2-inch by 1/2-inch pieces of wood placed below the bats of insulation and above the new tile. Where do we go now, boss? Steve putting painter's tape on the outside wall. Steve actually was sweating. Time for a break. Steve filling his mouth with cookies. Gridwork painted, slats in place, ready for ceiling tile. Old ceiling tile ready to be removed. Walter Deere, Director of Operations. Stephen Martin enjoying a beer break. I can't find it. Where did you put it, Walter? Walter making sure we're not going to spill paint on the floor. Steve putting in some of the last tile. Ron working on the bats of insulation. Having the project completed, the gentlemen are discussing how it should have been done and are enjoying a well-deserved break. I guess it's cleaned up good enough. The front entrance and the hallway were starting to show their age, so we decided a new paint job was in order. Steve Cahill busy in the hallway painting. Steve Cahill busy rolling the paint on the entranceway walls. Steve busy spray painting the hinges on the swinging doors at the entrance to the main hall. Since the street in front of the building was upgraded with new pavement, curbs, and sidewalks, we decided it was time to replace the set of steps leading into the building. Steve Cahill, busy removing the stainless steel railings, getting ready to move the set of steps out of the way. Fellow member Wayne Schum arrived on the scene with his dump truck and backhoe and soon was busy at the controls. Wayne Schum busy demolishing the steps piece by piece. The old steps was also a unit step. Steve Cahill, Irvin Zare, and Martin Blickman checking up on Wayne's progress to make sure he does a good job. Wayne also removed the old sidewalk in front of the steps. Steve busy leveling out some gravel. This shovel was quicker than Steve's. Walter and Steve discussing our new sidewalk. Steve telling Walter everything is level. Names of all the members who helped with the project. Ron Whiffen and Walter Deere discussing the next steps in the project. Martin Blickman busy wetting down the sidewalk. Ron Whiffen parged the wall behind the steps. Martin with his favorite tool. The new set of unit steps are in place and Walter Deere has the invoice from Ed's Concrete in Stratford. Here, Steve, you can pay for the steps. The new steps have arrived and are in place. Wayne busy cleaning up the odds and ends. Steve replacing the stainless steel railings he took off earlier. Well, another job's done. What's next? Steve asking Martin to make sure the holes are drilled deep enough in the cement. Ron busy bolting the bench down to the cement in front of Quayle's restaurant. Martin making sure the bench is comfortable and solid. The two benches at the back of the hall. Steve Cahill busy hooking up the drinking water faucet on the fountain in the center of town. Celebrating our 75th birthday anniversary was quite an important part of our agenda in 2012. That being the case, we purchased a banner to publicize the important event, and Ron Whiffen is busy installing it on the north wall. We held an official birthday party on September the 20th, 2012 at the Tavistock Memorial Hall. We had a guest list of all the past presidents, the Mayor, Don McKay, the MPP, Ernie Hardeman, a representative of all the groups that cater to our monthly meals. The tables are set, the chairs in place, ready for the celebration. Several easels depicting the important role the club played in the history of our community. A list of all the club's past presidents. A long list of the many achievements of the club in our community. Ruth Cahill signing the guest book. 1985 past president Martin Blickman selling 50-50 tickets. Ladies from Rosemarie's Restaurant in Shakespeare served the dinner. A wine glass to commemorate our 75th anniversary. 1986 past president David Stock, our club historian, talking with our current president, Richard Stein. 2010-2011 past president, Don McDonald. Our special entertainment, Don Vare from Belgrade. 2003, 4, and 5 past president, Ron and Marlene Whiffen. 1983 past president, Robert and Carolyn Routley. Robert is checking out the wine. Ruth Cahill and Marlene Whiffen deciding what table to sit at. Ron Whiffen pointing the finger. Member Wayne Shum reading some of our history. 1977 past president, Ken and Mildred Lichty and Mrs. Warnick signing in. 2000 past president, Doug Sparling being told where to sit by his wife Diane. 1996 past president, Doug Schrey carrying a door prize. Michelle Shum smiling for the camera. Member Ron Rudy discussing the evening meal with hostess Karen Erb. Donna Rudy and Ruth Cahill. Bob, Carolyn Routley, and Karen and Doug Schrey. Member Delmer Zare shaking hands with Ron Whiffen. Ruth Cahill, I'm sure, is giving Michelle Shum some motherly advice. Doug Sparling, 1987 past president, Bill Whittlaufer and Delmer Zare. Gloria Whittlaufer posing for the cameraman. Member Jack and Claudette Whittlaufer sitting down and John Innes watching that the young lady doesn't spill any water. Don Vare, our entertainment for the evening, playing the piano for our enjoyment during the dinner hour. Cameraman and 1988 past president Steve Cahill and daughter Cara. Member Ed Pello. Our secretary Bill Gladding and Sherry talking with Scott Francis. Members Greg Pye and Keith Whiffen. 1939 president and only surviving charter member, Jim and Ivy Francis. Reuben Heuser, Stan and Audrey Boyd. Gladys Stock, Harold Lang, and Mel Warnick. Our club treasurer, Al and Cheryl Calder. Our 1984 past president, Austin and Artis Herman. 2002 President Mike Bott shaking hands with Ron Whiffen. Mary Nicholas, Cindy and Brian Larson, and Ruth Craig. Members Robert Elliott and Mike and Beth Kaufman. (1981) past President Irvin Zare and Ruth Craig. Ed and Susan Pello, John Schultz and Shirley Weicker, and Robert Broderick. 1998 past President Keith and Chris Whiffen. Dinner is almost ready. Joan Rudy. 1993 past President Keith and Brenda Welfley. 1992 past President Murray and Barb Roth. Ken and Sue Whittlaufer, Chris and Keith Whiffen, and 1975 past President Bob Rudy. Stan Boyd, Reuben Heuser, Wayne and Michelle Shum. Ron and Donna Rudy and Ron and Marlene Whiffen. Karen Erb checking out for more food. Ruth Cahill and Doug Schrey watching Murray Roth pick up the door prize tickets. The dinner was served buffet style and really tasted good. MPP Ernie Hardeman enjoying his dinner. Mayor Don McKay and MPP Ernie Hardeman. Ernie Hardeman talking with Jim and Ivy Francis. Doug Schrey presenting Cindy and Brian Larson with a gift certificate for all they have done for the men's club throughout the years. Jim Francis saying a few words. Our guest MPP Ernie Hardeman. Our guest Mayor Don McKay. Member David Stock, our historian. Our featured entertainment for the evening, Country Clem from Belgrade. People enjoying Country Clem's humor. Michelle Schum and Diane Sparling. East Shore Tavistock Mayor Don McKay and President Richard Stein receiving a congratulatory plaque from the Ontario government by MP